When you're managing cloud resources in Microsoft Azure, understanding how trust relationships work between Microsoft Entra ID tenants and Azure subscriptions is absolutely essential. Without this trust, identity-based access and management of your cloud resources wouldn't be possible. In this lecture, you'll break down what that trust relationship means, how it's established, and why it's critical to successful governance and access control in Azure. What is a trust relationship with Azure subscriptions? Think of a trust relationship as the link between your Microsoft Entra ID tenant and an Azure subscription. This relationship defines who is allowed to sign in and manage resources within the subscription. When you create an Azure subscription, you associate it with a Microsoft Entra tenant. This tenant becomes the trusted identity provider for that subscription, and it defines the boundaries for who can access resources within it. Once that trust is established, only users, groups, and service principals from that specific Entra tenant can be assigned Azure RBAC, role-based access control, roles such as owner, contributor, or reader. This means you're fully in control of who can access what within your environment. When one of your users signs into Azure, the system first checks their identity against the linked Entra tenant. If their identity is valid and they've been granted the appropriate RBAC role, access is granted to the subscription. If no RBAC role has been assigned, or the identity is not part of the trusted Entra tenant, access is denied, even if the person is licensed in Microsoft 365 or another tenant. In short, Azure trusts your Entra tenant to authenticate users and then applies RBAC permissions to authorize what they can do. This trust relationship is foundational to secure, scalable access control in Azure. In some cases, you may want users from another tenant to access resources in your subscription. While the default trust is limited to the home tenant, you can extend this by inviting guest users via B2B collaboration into your tenant, then granting them roles in the subscription. This is particularly useful for partners or contractors needing access temporarily, centralized security or governance teams managing multiple tenants or subscriptions, multi-tenant cloud strategies, where users operate across several business units or affiliates. Just remember, even in cross-tenant setups, RBAC permissions must be explicitly granted within each subscription. Diagram on screen helps you understand how trust relationships work between Microsoft Entra ID and Azure subscriptions, which is critical when managing identity and access across your cloud environment. In regard to one Entra tenant to many subscriptions configuration, a single Microsoft Entra ID tenant is trusted by multiple Azure subscriptions. You can use this model to centrally manage identities, roles, and policies across various subscriptions. It's ideal for organizations that want a single source of identity and consistent governance across their entire Azure environment. In regard to one Entra tenant to one subscription scenario, one Entra ID tenant is connected to one Azure subscription. You might use this model in smaller environments or isolated workloads. It keeps things simple, and you still get full control over identity and access management, but it's limited to just one subscription. Many Entra tenants to one subscription setup is not supported. You can't have multiple Entra ID tenants trying to establish trust with a single Azure subscription. Azure subscriptions are designed to trust only one Entra tenant. If you try to break this model, users from other tenants won't be able to authenticate or manage resources, even if they exist in your organization. So, when you're designing your identity strategy, always remember, one subscription equals one trusted Entra tenant. You can scale out with more subscriptions under one tenant, but you can't scale in with multiple tenants pointing to the same subscription.